We're going to be unpacking a listener's personal ghost story from a video they shared about a really, really strange family trip to a cemetery.
Oh, wow.
And I know not everyone listening is a believer in this stuff, and that's totally okay. We're not here to convince anybody.
Yeah.
What we're going to do today is explore the story itself. You're with your family driving to a rural cemetery. It's, supposed to be this peaceful visit to honor loved ones, but our listener mentions the cemetery being so remote that there's not even cell service out there. So you pull in and there's this, quiet stillness in the air, and you instantly feel isolated.
Yeah.
Almost vulnerable, wouldn't you say? Okay, so they arrive at the cemetery. Everyone's getting out of the car. The narrator's cousin pulls out her brand new digital camera. These things were like a big deal.
Right.
Full battery, ready to capture those family memories. But here's where things get a little interesting. They go to take a picture and nothing. Camera's totally dead.
Mm.
Now we've all experienced those frustrating tech glitches, right? But at a cemetery,
Yeah.
it hits a little different, I think. And this is just the beginning. Remember how I mentioned the cemetery didn't have any cell service?
Right.
Well, that detail is going to come back in a big way as the story unfolds and add to that unsettling vibe. This is where the tension really starts to build in the story. The narrator mentions feeling this growing sense of unease, like a premonition that something is off.
Yeah.
It's subtle, but you can almost feel it, through the video. So the cousin's camera's acting upright, and then their other cousin realizes her phone is missing. Again, relatable. I mean,
Yeah.
we've all been there.
Of course.
It's like it just vanished into thin air. And remember, no cell service to, call it and check if it's ringing. So they're gathered near the family graves. Tensions are already a little high when suddenly the aunt's phone starts ringing. The narrator describes the ringtone as this strange, almost electronic beeping sound. Not their aunt's usual ringtone. But here's the catch. There's no cell service. None. 0 bars.
Wow.
Yet the phone is ringing clear as day. And if that wasn't creepy enough, the caller ID. Are you ready for this?
Hi, so something really weird happened to me a number of years ago, and I haven't talked much about it outside of my family just because it's one of those things that happened, and I honestly couldn't believe that it did. And if other people had not been there with me, I still don't know if I would believe that it happened. But it's a long story, so buckle up. So, if you know anything about me and my mom's side of the family, you know that my mom's side of the family has experienced a lot of death, a lot of tragedy. Both of my mom's brothers died at the age of 38. Very kind of unexpectedly, they became sick. Um, my grandparents both died in their 50s, long history of sickness and illness. And so our family cemetery grew very fast because of this. So this was probably around 2013, 2014. My mom and her two surviving sisters decided to get together. It had been a number of years since we had all been together and gone to the cemetery and done like a floral arrangement for their brothers that had passed away and also their parents. I hadn't seen my cousins in a long time and I really wanted to spend some time with them, so I decided we could make like a family outing and I decided to tag along. Something really important to note about this story, though, is there's no cell phone service at the cemetery. It is the middle of absolute nowhere. There's nothing to walk to except a creepy old church and nothing but miles and miles of farmland. And it's always been this way. It's been this way as long as I can remember. There's no cell phone service, and this is important for later in the story. So I'm sitting in the back of my aunt's Toyota, and we're driving down the road, and my cousin, who is around my age, pulls out her camera that she had just gotten as a gift. And she's like, oh, this is so cool. Check it out. And this was, a long time ago. So a digital camera was a big deal. So we're sitting there playing with it. The battery is full. And, we're just taking goofy photos, whatever. And so as we get to the cemetery, she goes to take out her camera again as we approach some of the graves because we wanted some photos of our parents out there. And it won't turn on. And we both have this moment, we're looking at each other like, why won't it turn on? So we pull the batteries out, we're fiddling with it, and it will not work. It just says no battery, no battery. Like, okay, so whatever, we put that away. A little bit into the trip, one of my oldest cousin, well, she's not really my oldest, but oldest cousin present on this trip, is complaining she cannot find her cell phone anywhere. And the last person who had it would have been her son, who was probably around 7 or 8 years old at the time. And he's telling us, I don't know where the phone is. I don't know where the phone is. And there's no cell phone service, so nobody can call it and figure out where it is, right? So there's a fence that separates where you park your car and where the cemetery begins. Our family plots are right on the fence line, or at least very close to it. We're all inside this fence. Nobody has been outside of this fence. And I know this because I'm always the observer. I'm always watching people and seeing what they're doing. While my mom and her sisters are over there fiddling with flower arrangements, my cousin and I are kind of sitting on the gravestone and I'm watching my cousins to see what they're doing. Nobody walks outside of that fence. I'm telling you, there's no way. No one can find this phone. And all of a sudden, my mom's oldest sister, her phone starts making the weirdest noise. It was the weirdest beeping sound. It was not a sound that was programmed into the phone. It was not a downloaded sound. I don't know how to describe it other than it just wasn't her ringtone. She honestly didn't even know it was her phone at first because of how weird the sound was. When she held up her phone, there was two really alarming things that I noticed. First, the phone should not have been ringing. Even though it was showing that someone was calling, there was no service in the corner. Didn't make any sense. The second thing that surprised us all is we're standing in a circle watching this phone ring. There's no one else out there. And the phone that is calling hers is the phone that is missing. And this is the first point in the trip I start to feel really uneasy. Like I'm trying to leave at this point. I'm like, Mom, like I don't feel good about being here. Like I really just want to go. But nobody else seems to be listening to me. Even though I'm like dying to get out of here. I know something is wrong. And in the midst of them not listening to me, what does my aunt do? She answers the phone. It's not a person on the other end of it. It is like this crackling sound, like someone like popping some like rocks or rolling rocks with their hand. And my mom and her sisters start crying and they're saying like this is our dad calling us. This is our dad. And I'm looking around and I'm like, is nobody else scared? At this point, I'm ready to walk out of this place and just leave. Like, I literally head to the car. And as I'm walking out of this car, there's like this little covered pavilion that's like kind of by the entrance of the cemetery on the other side of the fence where the cars are parked. And sitting on that pavilion is my cousin's phone, face down, locked. Nobody was out there to have called from that phone to my aunt's number. When my cousin unlocks that phone, there is no record of a phone call. There's nothing on it. It says no service. No phone call has been made. How is that possible? I don't know. I literally bolted to the car. I said, I'm done with this. I'm so done. I'm out of here. I would not be sitting here crying saying it's my dad because I just didn't feel good about it. Maybe I was just easily spooked. I don't know, but I'm leaving. Deuces. I climb back in my aunt's Camry and we're driving down the road leaving at this point. They've had their waterworks show. I'm pretty shook. Like, I'm not feeling too good. And my cousin's over there still fiddling with her camera. As we get down the road, she's like, I still don't understand why this camera doesn't work. She goes to turn it on and it says full battery. I've always been a pretty anxious person and I've also been told I'm a pretty big overreactor. But I don't know. In that situation, what would you guys do? Hey, so if you're watching this, that probably means you saw my ghost video. If you like that story, I'm really glad that you guys were able to find some joy in my trauma. And I actually have been talking about this a little bit more with my family recently since the video went kind of viral. And my cousin, who's around my age, we had a conversation about it, and she pointed out something that was kind of interesting that I thought I would share with you guys. So, unfortunately, since that event happened, my family suffered some more loss. My mom's oldest sister, she passed away from breast cancer, and her daughter passed away in her sleep unexpectedly. So, both of the people whose phones were involved were the next to die. And I know a lot of you guys are quick to jump on the your family's cursed bandwagon. I get it. I understand why you think that, but hear me out. My family has really bad genetics, and I mean really bad. I mean, you're dead at 38 from cancer bad. I haven't been back to the cemetery in years, and really I don't have intentions of going back until I absolutely have to. But knowing what I know now, it really bothers me because I realized where we were standing in that circle and my aunt's phone was ringing is now the same place where both my aunt and my oldest cousin are buried. And if that's not life for you, I don't know what is.
Hard to ignore the timing.
Right.
The fact that the aunt and the cousin are now buried in that same cemetery, in the exact spot where that phone rang with no service, where they all stood in a circle, feeling that shift from a normal family visit to something else.
It's like the story is giving us this puzzle, but with missing pieces.
Right.
We can try to assemble it to find those rational explanations, but there will always be gaps, those unanswered questions that linger long after the story is over.